Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to, I believe this is my 13th post. This one is on something you might possibly remember from your high school English class. It's on reading between the lines in M.R. James's ghost stories. Back in the 1920s, M.R. James wrote a collection of English ghost stories, and I recently happened upon a paperback copy published in the late 1990s. I wondered why such a collection of silly, slow, and plodding ghost stories would still circulate after so many years. But I only had to read the first story for my wonder to dissipate. These ghost stories are not really about ghosts. They are about the things we refuse to allow ourselves to see. Number 13 and Oh Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad were about fear of homosexuality. Lost Hearts was about the fear of mad scientists and those who turn a blind eye to the exploitation of children. A School Story was about unspoken relationships between teachers and students. The Mezzotint was about the dread of local ancestral rights giving way to globalized economic rights. The Treasure of Abbot Thomas was about a fear of academic delusion and ridiculous chains of conjecture. The Casting of the Runes was about fear of publishers stealing special, powerful ideas and silencing the original author. In each story, a ghost represented knowledge that people were too afraid to look at, and it helped readers process ideas that they would not allow themselves to consciously think about. Most of the fears in the stories seemed rather archaic to me and didn't produce a particularly frightening effect, but I was not the intended audience for most of them. There was, however, one that had the ability to scare me. For me, Canon Alberic's scrapbook seemed to strike a prescient, modern chord. A researcher finds a painting from the 1500s. It shows a king looking down at a horrible, clawed, hairy semi-human standing next to a soldier struck down by an unknown illness. The horrible creature from the painting later appears in the researcher's room in the middle of the night, and the reader is encouraged to conclude that whoever possesses the painting will be visited every night by this horrible vision. I think that I found the story scary because the characteristics of the soldier reminded me of someone struck by radiation sickness, and the monster had features that I associate with biological mutations from nuclear radiation. Here's a quote. There was black and tattered drapery around it. The coarse hair covered it, as in the drawing. The lower jaw was thin, what can I call it? Shallow, like a beast's. Teeth showed behind the black lips. There was no nose, the eyes of a fiery yellow, against which the pupils showed black and intense, and the exulting hate and thirst to destroy life, which shone there, were the most horrifying features in the whole vision. I'm probably projecting and still processing the Chernobyl miniseries I saw a little while ago. It was intensely frightening. The nuclear age is intensely frightening for all of us. But we have to get used to our fears. As I finished reading the story from the 1920s, I wondered, how could a book written back in the 1920s have obliquely commented on hidden fears of nuclear war? The nuclear bomb wasn't even conceived at such a date. Such an acausal occurrence would only make sense if you believe that literature has the power to control the future in a magical, life-imitating art sense. And I don't believe that happens, because I know that natural selection explains why a book that depicts modern fears in ghostly forms would be republished again and again. Modern readers ignore the ghost stories that don't speak to their fears, and they pass on the stories that do, thereby leaving an uncanny impression of prescient literature. It's still spooky to read such stories, even if you know it isn't real. Thank you for watching. Until next time.